Hello everyone, welcome to next session. In this session we will discuss differences between API virtualization, API mocking and service virtualization. So I would suggest everyone to please don't skip this session because it will be helpful in understanding further lectures also. So why we are discussing this? Are there really any differences between all these three or these all are similar? So let's understand. So let's take up the API mocking first. So API mocking is quite context specific. So suppose let's take an example. If a developer is testing something, right? So he wants to skip a particular API or a particular functionality, right? Or a particular functionality within that API. Suppose there are multiple operations within an API and a particular operation is not available. Suppose we have the customer API and within the customer API get balance is not available. So that particular part of the API, but developer can mock and use it to complete the testing, whether it's unit testing or whether it's any other type of testing, right? And how it differs from API virtualization. How API virtualization differs. So API virtualization also simulates the API, right? The real API with the minimum behavior. But if we compare it with the API mocking, that's one step ahead of API mocking, right? So I think so you all might be confused between all these three, right? That's what the challenge here is. These, if we say one thing, these all thing three of them are similar in the functionality, but the scope matters here. What is the scope of testing here? What is the purpose of using this? In API mocking, a developer is using it very context specific to test the particular functionality which is not available. However, in API virtualization, we are simulating the API itself with the minimum behavior. Whatever, and API virtualization is quite vastly used by the developer as well as the testers, right? But in this course, we have mentioned API mocking and the service virtualization also. Now, what is service virtualization? Service virtualization is also simulating the behavior of the components, backend APIs, but how it differs from API virtualization, API mocking is, in case of service virtualization, there are many enterprise tools available and you can virtualize any protocol here, any of the transport channel also, like we have JMS, we have IBM MQ, right? Even the middleware services can be mocked here, right? So the overhead in case of service virtualization is you need to set up the whole stack, right? So there can be a case we have a particular project and we have around 100 APIs there and all those need to be virtualized. So in that case, service virtualization comes into picture. Now the scope of the service virtualization matters here, right? What we are virtualizing here is the quite a vast, that is all the components of an application, and also it requires quite a cost overhead because the enterprise tools are quite costly to set up, and also you have to do the feasibility analysis before jumping onto the licensing part, right? And the entire environment need to be set up, and also you need quite people with quite extensive experience with the service virtualization tools. However, if we consider API mocking, right, or API virtualization, these can be done in many freeware tools also, like we will be discussing WireMock Cloud, and there are WireMock Cloud. Other than that, WireMock Java API also available. That is just a Java library which you can uh, include in any of the IDE to create your mocks, right? So why I am discussing this here is because these terms are quite interrelated and these are used interchangeably everywhere over the internet. Wherever you will see the topic, you will see this, all these three things. And also stubbing is also used. So those all are in one a similar thing, just the scope matters here. What type of scope is there, how much functionality you need to mock, right? So the in our further lecture, what we will discuss is you can implement that in any of these cases: API virtualization, API mocking, or service virtualization, right? But the tool you will be using will differ. That depends on the client to client and the requirement, but the basic concept remains as it is. Everything remains as it is. Thus the scope matters here, right? So that's why I just want to make you clear. You please don't get confused with all this. We just need to concentrate on the concepts. So I might be using these terms interchangeably in my further lectures also, when we will discuss our core service virtualization or API mocking part. So that's why I just need to make clear these concepts. So thank you guys. Let's meet you in the next session.